Hey everyone, I'm Sarah with Fisher Price Ranch. First off, please subscribe. When you aren't sure when to go into an emergency, a typical goat labor is going to be, they have early labor where they have contractions, their body is expanding, opening up, getting ready for labor. I've seen that last as much as 6 hours. No longer though. So if you see a goat in labor, it could take up to 6 hours before they're actually ready to start pushing. So once they get to actual point of active labor, early labor is over with, you now go into active labor. Active labor, they start pushing. You want to see babies, at least the first one born, within 30 minutes. Otherwise, something is going wrong. So usually the first kid will take the longest because it's pushing through everything, opening everything up. And so that first baby always takes the longest to come out. After that, usually the next ones come out pretty fast. Usually the second one or third one, however many they have, they usually come out within 5 to 10 minutes of the first one. The next ones start popping out. It's same thing though, the same rule, 30 minutes. If the second one hasn't come out, something is wrong. So that's when you need to start going in. So you can lube up, you can use any kind of cooking oil, actual lubrication, something. Even sometimes if they have a bunch of slime on them, I'll just wipe my hand all over their rear end to get enough lubrication and then go in. You want to go really slow, and you want to have your hand like this because you want to slowly open up. But, you want to make it as small as possible to get into the cervix and into the uterus. So we had a pretty rough day yesterday with a friend of mine, and so I thought I would kind of go over with you a little bit about what happened and kind of explain what exactly we did. So she actually bought some of the goats for me. So if you guys remember Genoa, she was one that we had sold her. Ow, don't bite me. So anyway, they bred her to Charleston Chew, if you guys remember him. They also bought him, and she was a first-time mom. So what happened with her is she went into labor about 10 a.m.-ish, and I was at work, so I was not able to be there right away. And so she kept giving me updates, and I would check my phone as any chance I could at work. And so she was having issues with the doe delivering. She was pushing a little bit, then her other goat would come and bother her, and so it was kind of stalling labor a little bit. So eventually the other goat quit doing that. It finally laid down, left her alone. So my friend thought that she would be able to start her official labor then because she was not being bothered. So after a while of nothing happening, eventually the goat actually had a little bit of a bubble coming out of her vulva, and she sent me a picture of it, and I will attach it to this video. So this is the picture that she sent me. If you see, it's actually fleshy. It's not like a normal sac that you would see to have a baby in. So my first thought was that she was prolapsing. So here's that picture real quick.
There's a bubble. Dave! I need to know if I need to assist. I need your determination if I need to assist. I can't tell if that bubble's popped.
Alright, so as you guys can see, that is not a normal bubble that you would see with a goat in labor. And so I knew something was wrong, so I informed them that I was getting off work within 30 minutes, but they're still about 45-minute drive from where I work to where they live. And so I advised them that they needed to get the prolapse back in, and that they needed to proceed to get these babies out, because the longer we waited, the sooner the chance would be that these babies would not survive. And so, anyway, I get off work, I'm headed over to them, and I'm going fast. I get there in about 30 to 35 minutes, and so anyway, I show up, and they're new goat owners, and because I've been doing this a while, I always feel bad because I'm very forceful. We got to get this done. We got to save lives here. So we got to do this quick. And so I just grab a hold of Genoa by her horns. She didn't want to get up. They were kind of telling her to get up. And So I grab a hold of her horns. I yanked her off the ground, hold her, lubed up, and I went straight inside because we gotta save these babies. So I'm going to explain to you, if you have never had a hand inside of a goat, kind of what you're feeling. So when you first go into the goat, once you actually get past this part of your hand, which is the widest part, and you fall into her uterus, or into her cervix. So there's like a little pocket there. So you can actually move your whole fist around and feel you're inside of like a pocket. Now, if you cup your hand kind of like that, sorry, learning the camera still, but if you cup your hand like that and just set it down inside there, you'll feel what feels like a pillow. And then in the front part of that pillow is the opening into the uterus where the babies are. So then you would eventually, put your hand small and slowly work down inside the uterus and reach for those babies to pull them out. Now, her situation was actually rare. I personally had never dealt with that before, and so this was all new to me. And so what I did was, once I found her uterus, and then I reached back for that hole, I couldn't find it. And so after feeling around real carefully, I eventually felt it, and the hole was so small, I could not even get a pinky through. And so her uterus had not dilated. Even though her cervix had, uterus was not dilated. Now in that situation, you can't give something like oxytocin because it will cause her to start pushing, and she can actually cause damage to the uterus because she's pushing against her own self. And it'll cause damage and can hurt her and or the babies. So we couldn't do that. So what I did was I got a hold of some people that have more experience, and I talked to them about it because I hadn't dealt with this before. And they advised me that this was rare, it doesn't happen very often, and it is extremely rare to get that uterus to dilate and save the babies. So after talking to this person, we opted to try to manually dilate her uterus, but if it didn't start working soon, we needed to, the next option, unfortunately, was to do a terminal C-section. So after I reached back in, I found the uterus, you go counterclockwise, and you just do circular motions to try and open that up. And after a few minutes, I didn't feel any little bit of give at all whatsoever. And because she'd already been in labor so long, I told them, it's time. We have to do this terminal C-section, or we're going to lose everybody. If it's not already too late, because I wasn't able to get in to feel the babies. We still didn't know if they were even still alive. If you don't do anything, the mother will die. The babies will die inside of her and rot, and they will kill her. So you have to sometimes make that really hard decision, depending on the situation, of course. This is one of those really rare situations, and so the only option is to do a C-section. We did try to get a hold of a vet with no answer, and it really isn't an option. When you're breeding for meat, you don't want to spend thousands of dollars to try and save one goat when you have many more on the farm. So we don't typically, as meat farmers, we don't typically go to a vet and spend that kind of money. So, like I said before, we do all of our own vet care, and if we can't save them, we butcher. So that way at least we can save the meat and nothing goes to waste. So a terminal C-section is you kill the mother and then cut her open and pull out the babies. So what we did, just like in my butcher videos, we found that sweet spot on the back of her skull and we just shot her. So as soon as she hit the ground, I immediately carefully start cutting open her stomach, and then you have to cut through then the stomach lining and then get into the uterus. Then you have to cut open the uterus and then get into the babies, cut open the sac that the babies are in, and then get them out. So unfortunately at this point I felt so bad for my friend. She's having a really hard time with this. But as soon as I pulled that first baby, I just shook it a little bit upside down to let any fluid in the lungs or anything kind of flow out, down and out of the nose and the mouth, and kind of smack the chest a bit just to help kind of get things moving. Clean the nose, and it started breathing. So immediately I hand it to my friend with a towel, and she starts rubbing it vigorously, very excited to have a live baby. So then I immediately go in again. There's another one. So same thing, I grab a hold of the sac, cut it open, get this one out, and do the same thing. So now babies are out. Unfortunately, mom is no longer with us. And now we have to get these babies to survive. Because we waited so long and the length of the labor, everything that happened, these babies, if we would have literally waited one more minute, we would have for sure lost the buckling. He was barely even breathing when I got him out. He was the second one that we pulled. Or no, I'm sorry, the first one that we pulled. You could tell the tongue is sticking out, and it was actually white. There was no color in the tongue whatsoever, and so there was no oxygen flowing in his body. So we had to keep putting him upside down, just slowly working out all that mucus, hitting him lightly in the chest, just trying to break up the mucus and get it out of his body. So that took quite a while. I want to say it was at least an hour before he kept his tongue in his mouth and started actually breathing normally. The female, she didn't take as long, but I would say she was still at least another 30 minutes or so before she started breathing normally.
On here giving you guys an update because I know everybody's been waiting. It's been a long process. We lost mom, but we have two babies. This little guy right here is Lucky. It's Lucky. If it was like another few minutes, he wouldn't have made it, but he's breathing good and making noise. And then we have a little girl who doesn't have a name yet, but I'm sure Shay wants me to name it Shay. Burp? Yeah, you need to get that out. Oops. So we have two babies. The boy's making all kinds of noise. He's got gorgeous blue eyes, you guys. Look at his eyes. They're so pretty. And then he's got little goat waddles. Look at that. It's so cute. I mean, it's sad we lost mom in the process, but we would have lost all three of them. So, we're really grateful we saved the babies. And then I'm going to go over here and everybody say hi. This is Sarah, our friend who we got the goats from, and she came over and rescued our babies. So, hello, everyone. So, that's the update. They're adorable. Oh, look at the girls trying to walk.
Visit Sarah on Fisher Price Ranch on YouTube.
That's true.
She's got lots of information.
She's got lots of goats, lots of information, lots of tips. This was her first...
She's having a lot of babies, too.
She is. And this was her first experience with the complications that we had. Genoa's, her uterus
Her uterus would dilate.
Yeah, so the uterus wouldn't dilate. We couldn't get in to get a hold of the babies, and I tried to dilate her for a little while, and it just wasn't working. So we had to jump into action to save the babies, and looks like it worked. So it was emotional for me because you don't expect to put the mom of your babies down. In ranch life, I expect to put animals down, but quick action saved the babies. So we have 2 new babies. And looks like Jubilee is getting pretty close too. So we'll have a couple more soon. And she's had babies before, so we don't expect any problems. Yeah, hopefully. So thank you guys. We'll keep you posted and get pictures up.
So once we got to that point, because they're new goat owners, they don't have many supplies really. So we jetted it all the way to my place. Checked their temperature. It was very low, low 90s. The normal temperature for a goat is 101.5 to 103.5. And so they're very low in temperature. They had no suck reflex. And so the first thing to do was to get their temperature up to normal temp. And so we did a heat tent with that. If you guys don't know what that is, see my goat down video that I've done quite a few months ago, but it does show that on there. So anyway, once we got their temperature up, they started to try and stand. They started to kind of not really have a suck reflex yet. So we used a syringe and just got some, I always keep colostrum on hand and fresh goat milk, frozen, not fresh, but, so anyway, we heated up some colostrum on the stove, and then we syringed it into them so they would just slowly swallow little droplets, and got about 6 cc's into each of them. And then we put them back into the heat tent, kept warming them. The warming part can take a long time. I want to say it was about 3 hours before they held a good body temperature. Once they hit that good temperature though, they had a suck reflex. We got them on a bottle. They sucked down, each they got about 4 ounces of colostrum, and then we mixed some colostrum into the milk, and then they got that. So my friend got to take 2 live babies home, which was great. So that was exciting. So she actually messaged me today, and they're doing great. They're up, they're walking around, they're nursing very well. So it was a good outcome, and they were able to harvest the doe, and they were able to put meat in their freezer. So even though they lost one, they still gained. They got a boy and a girl. The girl can pass on the genetics and give them kids in the future. The little boy can breed and pass on genetics, and then also the mother was able to feed them. So you have to look at it that way. It was very hard on them at first, but after everything kind of worked itself out, they're okay now. They understand it as farming. Anybody that gets into farming has to understand you are going to lose your animals at one point or another, and so you have to take it and try not to let it hurt you mentally, So I explained to them that's happened to me before. I'll go over one of my incidences. I had a goat that was in labor while I was at work. I worked a 12-hour shift, so I couldn't do anything. By the time I got home at 6 o'clock in the morning, she still hadn't had the baby. So I went in, I couldn't even get in. Her cervix was already closing up, so my hand was too big to get in there. Had to call a neighbor over who had smaller hands. She was able to get inside and could not get this baby out. It was already dead, the hair was coming off of it, so it was just time to save the mom. But no matter what we did, we could not get that baby out. We tried for hours, all different angles, different positions on the mom. We just could not get the baby out. And eventually the mother ended up tearing her uterus, and she was bleeding out, so we had to put her down. So that was one of my first incidences with losing our goat, and it was one of my first goats. So it happens, but we were able to harvest the mother. I know that sounds weird when the baby is dead inside of her, but it's all encased in the uterus. So when you butcher, you take out the whole uterus, and everything that is bad comes out, and so the meat is still good. Alright, you guys, well, I hope that this video was helpful, and everybody has an amazing, happy kidding season, and thank you so much. We'll see you next time.